Good afternoon, friends. In today's class, we are going to see forest and wildlife resources. So, when we look at the introduction, we as human beings are living in an ecosystem, which means we are dependent upon each other. For example, the plants, animals, and the microorganisms, the quality of air that we get, the water we drink, everything around us is vital important for the purpose of survival. So let me ask a question. Where are we getting the purpose of survival? That is, where are we extracting these things? It is definitely the forest. So we can say that forests play an important role in the ecosystem. So forest can be said as a primary producer because we are dependent on the forest. We as human beings, both living and non-living, depends on the forest. So next we are going to see about the flora and fauna in India. So as the name itself says, we all know that flora and fauna means plants and animals. So when we see, we always find that we have animals and plants around us which are unique in nature. So to be proud, we can say that India is having one of the world's richest countries in terms of its biological diversity. So, but then there is a possibility that twice or thrice the times the numbers are yet to be discovered, which means there are n number of flora and faunas found in India. So, saddened fact is that India has also recorded wild flora and 20% of its mammal into the threatened list, which means they are becoming endangered day by day. So that is why they have been categorized into critical. Critical means they have no purpose of coming out. They have no chances of recovery. So we can say critical in other words as the flora and fauna reaching the verge of extinction. So examples, cheetah, pink-headed duck, mountain quail, forest spotted owlets. So these are the animals which are no more, which means no one can say how many species may have been already lost. So there are n number of species like that. So when we look at this, there is a concept called vanishing forest. What is vanishing? Vanishing means removing, causing danger. So the dimension of deforestation in India are staggering. As we saw in the previous lesson, we as human beings contribute to the deforestation. By all means, like we extract wood, okay? So everything, the table that we use, the chair that we use, everything comes from the forest. So as per the statistical data, so when you look at the textbook, they would have clearly described through statistical data. So let's learn it for the purpose of 1 mark, like to a 79.42% of the million hectare, which is again been divided into two parts. Like they have taken this many percentage from the dense forest and they have taken 0.14% from the mangrove forest. So evidently, according to the State of Forest report, 3,775 square kilometer since 2013 has been estimated. That is, the forest has been vanished in this way. So, however, when we see this, so there is a positive point, there is a positive aspect. We as individuals, through the combined effort of government, has n number of conservation measures, management interventions and plantations. So there are different type of agencies which is specifically working on to improve the forest and its conditions. So there are different agencies like that. Okay friends, let's see how are they classifying species. So when we look at a species, there are different types, okay. So according to International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, please note this abbreviation. There are chances that this might be a question for your 1 marks. So according to this IUCN, we have 6 different categories. First one is normal species, endangered, vulnerable, rare, endemic and extinct. Let's see a short glimpse of what these species are. Firstly, Normal species is like everywhere we can see. For example, the cattle around us, the pine, rodents. So we'll be able to see, like every day we can see them. But endangered species is like we cannot see them because they are in danger of extinction. They have no chances or possibilities for survival, which means they are going to become no more. Like they are going to be no more. Example, black buck, crocodile, sangai, etc. When we look at the vulnerable species, we have to clearly differentiate what is endangered species and vulnerable species. So there might be questions like this, differentiate between endangered and vulnerable species. You should be able to differentiate what is the difference between endangered and vulnerable. So vulnerability means they are going to reach the level of decline. That is, it is likely to move into the endangered category, which means they are not still in endangered, but then there are possibilities in the future that the negative factors also may contribute. So they are not more endangered, they are vulnerable. I hope you're clear with what is meant by endangered species and vulnerable species. Secondly, we are going to see the division of rare, endemic and extinct species. Rare species, the word itself says like they are not found to be everywhere. For example, they have only small number of population, and even if the negative factors are also going to contribute to such category, then the species will definitely move into rare category itself. And then we have endemic species. Endemic species, like the geographical difficulties and the location may cause such kind of species to become endemic, which means that they are found only in particular areas. For example, everywhere you cannot see polar bear because it only suits for a particular type of a habitat that is living in. So due to these external factors, endemic species are termed in this way. So lastly, we are going to see extinct species. Extinct species is like you cannot even find that. They are not found after searches of known or likely areas where they may occur. So in this slide, we have clearly explained the classification of species according to IUCN. So next we are going to see what are the negative factors. So we are always talking about natural depletion, but there are some negative factors which contribute to the fearful depletion itself. So when we look at around the things that we use, it's really clear that we are extracting maximum number of wood from the forest. So wood, barks, leaves, rubber, medicines, food, fuel, everything is extracted from forest and our wildlife resources. So when we look at the activities undergone by us, even before independence and after independence, whatever it may be, like railways, agriculture, for commercial purpose, we have used forest. So not only we have used forest for the individual purpose, but then when we take it from a national point of view, it's really clear that we have taken forest for the advantage. Like we have built railways and we have made trade a successful one by the means of forest extraction. So clearly they have given from 1951 to 1980, according to the Forest Survey of India, 26,200 square kilometer of forest has been converted into the agricultural land. So, specifically, like due to the activities underwent by the tribal people itself, forest is being endangered, which means we are causing a depletion to the forest. Especially when we look at this last point, they have given northeastern and central India has the deforestation, like has deforested or degraded by shifting cultivation, which means jum. In their language, it is called as jum cultivation, a type of slash and burn. So when such type of cultivation is carried out, the fertility of the land is being lost, which means that there are no chances to cultivate the land again. So one cannot expect the same level of fertility found for the first time. So dear friends, there is a question now. Are the colonial forest policies to be blamed now? Are we going to blame the policies which has been implemented by the government? Yes, there are a few policies which has caused forest depletion. We'll see one by one. Large-scale development projects like the Madhya Pradesh project, that is Narmada Sagar project, has caused forest depletion. So no doubt that mining is another important factor behind deforestation. So it's clear that the Boxer Tiger Reserve in West Bengal has been moved into endangered category because of the dolomite mining. So mining is one of the important factors which contributes to the deforestation. Also, there are few species which has been blocked. For example, the great Indian elephant. The it has disturbed the natural habitat of many species, not only the forest but also the species, that is the plants, animals around us are being interrupted by the policies. So now particularly they have given a case study on the Himalayan yew in trouble. So the Himalayan yew, the tribe is Taxus wallaceiana, is the medicinal plant found in various parts of Himachal Pradesh and Arunachal Pradesh. So like this is a chemical compound called taxol, which is extracted from the bark of the tree. So this has been particularly used for the cancers. The drug is now biggest selling anti-cancer drug in the world, which means that particular species has a speciality of curing cancer. That species is under great threat because we are exploiting it a lot, because once it is said that we are having a medicine out of it, out of a particular plant, then there is a threat. So due to over exploitation, this particular chemical compound called taxol, that is the Himalayan yew, has been over exploited by the human beings. So in the last 1 decade, that is in the last 10 years, thousands of yew trees have dried. So when we see Himachal Pradesh and Arunachal Pradesh, lump sum amount of trees has been crashed for the purpose of this medicine. So wildlife is in trouble. So the other activities which contribute to the trouble of wildlife is that they have destructed our habitat in one way or the other. We hunt, we poach, and we exploit for many times. Also, additionally, pollution, different types of pollution like air pollution, water pollution, and we are causing only the trouble to our wildlife. So, which has been the important point for the decline in India's biodiversity. So, in the introduction, we saw India has a great biodiversity, but then there is also the other side of it. That is, wildlife is in trouble day to day. And other important causes of environmental destruction are like unequal access. Like we are not having a responsibility to lead a balanced life of resources. Like the consumption and the extraction are imbalanced. So there is no proper planning. There is unequal access itself. Also, overpopulation undoubtedly has caused the wildlife in trouble. So average rate is that American consumes 40 times more than resources than the Somalian. Like they have given two different strategies where the rate of consumption differs from one side to the other. So similarly, when we look at this, the richest 5% of Indian society probably cause more ecological damage because there are variations in the level of percentage. So due to the responsibilities that has been endowed to person, it differs from person to person and country to country. The level of maintenance and the distribution factors also contribute to the trouble of wildlife factor. And then destruction of forest and wildlife is not just biological issue. So when we look at the destruction of forest, we cannot only see from a biological point of view. It has also interrupted the life that we are living today. So it is related to the cultural diversity. So many people, they have moved from one part of the region to another part of region. Like many people, they are directly or indirectly dependent upon the forest. So when we look at the second case, within the poor, women are affected more than the women. So when we look at the forest depletion from a gender basis, women are affected. In many societies, when we see today, women bear the utmost responsibility. They have to fetch fuel, fodder, and water from the forest. So when we look at the ancient times, women were responsible to do all such activities. So because of the forest depletion, water has also been depleted. So women have to walk 10 kilometers to collect these resources. Today, in today's case, we are running for water, running a shortage of water. So like we are getting 15 days or per month only we are getting water. Like the shortage of drinking water is becoming greater day by day. So it is also correlated to our health. So first we saw how it is affecting the nation as a whole, how it is affecting women and men, and thirdly we are seeing how it is affecting our health. So it causes serious health problems like it may lead to serious diseases like due to improper consumption of water. Also there are problems like that, and the indirect impact of degradation has also caused drought or deforestation, which includes flood and all that. Importantly, when we look at this forest depletion, poverty is one of the major problems that we are facing today. So poverty is directly related to environmental destruction. Because we are causing damage to the biological resources today, we are running shortage of water, food and everything. So that is why poverty is still existing today. So therefore, what we conclude is that forest and wildlife is very much essential to us. So in order to lead a healthy life, we should follow some strategies and the methods of conservation to protect our forest. So one of the major methods of conservation that they has mentioned in the textbook is Project Tiger. We are going to see the description of that. So tiger is a symbol of our nation, like which symbolizes our national animal. Okay, so that is why we are emphasizing a lot on tiger. But today the case is topsy-turvy, which means that tigers are becoming endangered. So when we look at the points, they have described about the importance of tiger. Tiger is one of the key wildlife species in the web. So they have given some statistical data related to tiger. So the major threats that has been caused to the tiger population is huge. They have used the tiger for trade purpose, shrinking, and then they have also used tiger for many other purposes, like they may get its skin. So the trade of tiger skins and the use of their bones also, they extract some medicinal purposes out of it. So since India and Nepal provide habitat to about 2/3 of the surviving tiger population in the world, these two nations became prime targets. Like when we look at the world, when we look at from a global scenario, only India and Nepal has the privilege to have its habitat, like about 2/3 of the surviving tiger population is itself found in India. So as an advantage, as a noted point of advantage, these have been targeted for poaching and illegal trading. So let's see what is Project Tiger. So this is one of the world's famous wildlife campaign, which was launched in the year 1973. So tiger conservation, when we look at tiger conservation, it is not only an effort to save an endangered species, but then it is an important point wherein, for example, if this movement has been started, then people would get awareness out of it and then start conserving the extinct species one by one. Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand, Sundarbans National Park in West Bengal, Bandhavgarh National Park in Madhya Pradesh, and few other parks or some of the tiger reserves found in India. When you look at the map, it's clearly given, like they would ask you to mark where is Jim Corbett National Park is found or Sundarbans National Park is found. Okay. So now we are going to look at the classification of forest. They are again classifying the forest into 3 types. So in the previous slide, we saw the classification of species. In this slide, we are going to look at the classification of forests. Reserved, protected and unclassed. So reserved in the sense they are regarded as the most valuable. So when we are traveling to Ooty or some other places like that, there would be a board called restricted. No public is allowed, no people is allowed here, which means that it is reserved, which means the wildlife animals, there are chances for the wildlife animals to exist there. So they are called as reserved forest. Unclassed forest. So unclassed forest is they belong to both government and private individuals. So they are called as unclassed. So there may be lands, there may be bare lands around the roadside. We don't know for whom the forest belongs to, be it an individual or government, whoever may own the forest. The third kind of forest that we are going to look is protected forest. Protected forest is purely undertaken by the forest department, which means that the government and the community has gained a few awareness about the forest, and they take full charge of it. Like, this forests are protected from any further depletion, because it's clear that today, because of the population and the improving technologies, we are going to deplete forest and its resources. So government has taken initiative to protect forests. So the name itself says that they are called as protected forests. So they are the types and distribution of forest and wildlife resources that we saw. Finally, we are going to see how we as a community is going to conserve the forest. So today we have some plans and implementations in our country. So conservation, there are few strategies to follow, like conservation strategies are not new in our country. But there is always an ignoring point that forests are also home to some of our traditional communities. When we look at the histories, people would worship forest. But in some areas of India, local communities are really struggling hard to conserve this, because they cannot they cannot have a sure livelihood, like they cannot have an assurance of having a long time livelihood. So specifically, when we look at this, in Sariska Tiger Reserve, Rajasthan villagers have fought against mining by citing the Wildlife Protection Act. So many tribal communities, one of the case that they have given here is, villagers have fought against mining by citing the Wildlife Protection Act. So in many areas, the villagers who live there itself are protecting habitats. So they don't want government to involve it. So they as people itself are having an initiative to protect the resources that they have. The people who live in the Alwar district of Rajasthan, they have declared 1,200 hectares of forest as sanctuary, which means Biodev Dakap sanctuary, declaring their own set of rules and regulations which do not allow hunting and the other things. Like, for example, they don't want any rules and regulations provided by the government. Instead, they have their own rules and regulations. So this is the two cases that we saw in this slide. That is, one is Sariska and another one is sanctuary. So friends, in this lesson we have taken a brief look at what is forest and how are we depleting, and we have seen the classification of forest and species in detail, and also there are a few case studies given in the slides which explains about the initiative taken by the people. So to conclude this lesson, we could say that we as human beings has to conserve the forest and the wildlife resources that we have. Thank you.